Okay, let's talk about Chapter 11. We are going to discuss compliance with the regulatory agencies. This is the fundamentals chapter. On the page 267, you'll see a lot of key terms and objectives listed there. These key terms are straightforward for myself. If these are words that you struggle with, I recommend you entering the information into Quizlet. Um, if you've never used Quizlet.com, that is a great way to learn vocabulary words, key terms, concepts, etc. You'll see what I'm talking about. Um, give it a try. Side note, a seventh grader created that platform like 12 years ago or so. Anyway, okay, so intro to chapter 11 on page 268. You can read all about why we have regulatory agencies. It's all about improvement and consistency. So the CLIA, that is a Clinical Lab Improvement Act, 1988. Congress said, the government stepped in and said, okay, we've got to do things better. It's got to be organized. You have to label specimens correctly, anything within a lab. And you'll read all about that. This is actually managed or governed by CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Figure 11.2 lists categories of laboratory tests. And if you guys, if you've never had any type of laboratory work done, there is a lot of words that look alike, sound alike, spelled alike. When physicians or providers order lab tests, you have to make sure you have the right one. You collect the sample in the right color bottle, and etc. There's a lot to lab. That's why there's so much of this here listed. Um, and you'll probably, I had to even use some Google to find out what some of these, especially under the parasites, what some of those were. They're not very common. The other stuff is very common though. So anyway, moving on. Okay, page 271 is where I'm going to focus now. You will read all about that and the CDC. This page talks about the waivers provided. Page 272 is an example of a health insurance claim form. And let me remind you that most offices do not use paper like this anymore, neither do health insurance companies. Just about everything is online. Everything's submitted, data's collected via a computer. Even orders are not handwritten anymore by doctors. It's usually entered into Epic or whatever computer system the facility chose to go with. Okay, so here's different tests listed at the bottom of page 273. Mohs surgery, examination of tissues. This is, we're talking about like dermatology type stuff, but it's a sample that goes to the lab. So I'm going to flip the page to 274. We're moving beyond the labs. And now we're going to start talking about the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, CMS. I'll let you read that. It speaks to recovery audit contractors, ambulatory surgery centers. There's a difference between ambulatory care and a regular physician's office. There's even a difference between ambulatory care and a hospital. They're not the same thing. Joint Commission is the next section that you will read about in this chapter. Figure 11.6 on page 276. This is an older autoclave that is photographed here, but that's basically what it is. Dental offices, pediatric offices, eye doctors, primary physician, urgent care, everybody has some type of autoclave. You have to sterilize equipment. All right, 277. Now, as far as scale, and just another example, in the hospitals, we don't have this tiny little microwave looking autoclave. It's like an entire room that is an autoclave. People have to be trained to use it because of safety and heat and such as that. Infectious bacterial diseases are listed in figure 11.7 on page 277. Page 277 at the bottom also you'll read about the Office of Inspector General, OIG. This is federal. These people are pretty important. You want to work with them well and get their approval on everything. You do not want to upset. Well, you don't really want to upset any regulatory agency because they govern you in some way at some level. So you want to play nice and make sure you are doing what you're supposed to do, and maybe even going above and beyond, not to negate the outcome, but to improve outcomes. So page 278, hospitals, home health, nursing home physicians, you'll read all about that. OSHA. OSHA is a agency that protects the people who work in a facility. Employees, employers are responsible for OSHA training. Once upon a time, I was the OSHA nurse for Wake Med's surgery center in the big hospital, but that was a long time ago. And it was a lot of information to learn and to keep up with and watch and shadow people and make sure everybody was doing things correctly. All right, so OSHA, it kind of skips because of that figure 11.8. But on page 280, the regulations required by OSHA include, and there are bullet points that start on page 280 and finish out on page 284. And then there's our summary, and you'll notice that the review exercises in the back of the chapter is what your quiz is made of. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions coming off this chapter. I'll be more than happy to answer.